Selfish Sesh would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that this podcast was recorded and produced on, the Wurundjeri and Bunurong peoples of the East Kulin Nations. We pay our respect to their elders past, present and emerging, and we extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Welcome back to the Selfish Sesh. Now, I won't do a little life recap today, as this episode is just packed with content and great life advice, so it does mean that it is a little longer than usual, but I promise you it is worth it. Today's guest is actually a returning guest for, I think, the first time ever here on the Selfish Sesh. It is businesswoman and sought-after high-performing individual Colleen Callander and her longtime friend and new business partner, life coach and author, Shannah Kennedy. Now, together the two of them have recently launched their Masterplan program, which equips high-performing leaders with a plan for life and an action plan for future success. So today we dive into their first pillar of self from their Masterplan, and I personally learnt so much along the way, so I'm sure you will too. So now let's get on to the interview. I am so excited to be sitting here today with Shannah and Colleen from the Masterplan, and we are going to get right into what that is. But before we get started, firstly, welcome to the Selfish Sesh.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be here and to see you again. We were just saying it's 2 years since we last chatted, and how quickly those 2 years have gone. So it's really wonderful to be back with you.
It's so funny, even now talking about all of my episodes, all my interviews. My mum always says, Colleen, that your episode is her favourite.
Oh, I love your mum so much.
And before we get right on into it, I like to ask all of my guests who they are in 3 words or less.
3 words, that's really hard. We're so used to giving you this big spiel. I think when I think about my 3 words, they really come back to my values. So my values, one is authenticity, kindness, and of course, leadership is a big passion of mine.
Yeah, and I'm Shannah, and it's great to be here. So thank you very much for having us on the show as a duo, as a dynamic duo, which is fantastic. So me, I'm a high performance life coach. So I'm all about, small action, big impact, making sure people have clarity on who they are, where they're going and how they're going to get there.
And I think that is the perfect type of conversation to hear on the Selfish Sesh, because it's all about finding out who you are, knowing who you are, liking who you are, and just being proud and out in the world as your true self. So I'm very excited for this conversation. So Colleen, we obviously chatted, 2 years ago we said it was. And since then, alongside Shannah, you have launched the Masterplan. It's a big word. You see it in like bold in capitals. What exactly is the Masterplan and what is the course?
Yeah, fantastic. It has been a big 2 years since I saw you last. And one of the most exciting things that has really happened is that Shannah and I have joined forces. As Shannah said, we are 2 women, collaborating. Our sort of motto is 2 women, 1 mission, elevating humans. That's really what we're dedicating this next decade, this next chapter of our lives to doing. And the Masterplan came about, actually, we're on a walk together. We do a lot of walking together, Shannah and I. And it came about because my background, as we've spoken about before, 30 years in the fashion industry, 13 of those years as CEO across 2 iconic fashion brands. So my whole passion is around leadership and brand and culture and people. And Shannah comes from a very different angle, although we've both worked together, and Shannah's been my life coach as well. But Shannah's real specialty and expertise is all around life coaching and building, real human performance and high performing humans and health and well-being. So on this walk one day, we thought, we always said we wanted to work together, and my set of skills and Shannah's set of skills, we're like, let's bring these together. These could be pretty awesome and dynamic. But there was one other ingredient that was really missing, which was the longevity piece. So we came up with the master plan, which is just one of our programs under our banner of human elevation. And we'll talk about a few others today, I'm sure. But it really is about creating a program that really elevates humans in their life, their leadership, and also longevity, which is, let's do all these wonderful things and have a life of fulfillment and happiness and success, but let's also make sure we do it for the long term without burning out and building in self-care and all of those really important things for ourselves. So yeah, the master plan is this full immersive day that we take companies through. And it really is pretty special when people spend the entire day thinking of those 3 pillars about themselves.
And we will touch on burnout soon, because that's a topic that I am personally very, very passionate about. It's something that I've, faced in my kind of personal and professional life. But why did you both think it was so important to launch the master plan?
Well, as Colleen said, we came up with the concept on the walk, and it started out as, let's just do a little bit of a keynote together and have fun. And then we were sort of thinking, we have a combined over 50 years of unbelievable experience in high performance roles, that we should be taking that and turning that into a whole business. So what started out as, let's just write a little keynote, has turned into an entire business. And that's probably because we're so driven, I suppose. We take things to the next level. But it was important because when we really drilled down to everything, it was, people need clarity. Their words, they need to have crystal clear wording on who they are, where they're going, how they're going to get there, how they love themselves, how they protect the asset, which is themselves, and how to put that into not only a master plan, a code of conduct, but then create an action plan. And that's exactly what we do with elite athletes and Olympians. And how do we bring that now to everybody? Why can't we have high performance living for everybody on the planet by using the same kind of tools that elite athletes use?
It's funny, I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I was actually being interviewed on a podcast about, finding yourself and how did you find yourself. But for me, I think it was something that came quite naturally. But I was surprised that for so many people, it actually doesn't come naturally. And I can't imagine, planning and working out what you're passionate for and about without knowing who deep down you are.
Exactly. And that's why, I studied life coaching 20 years ago when nobody had even heard of it. And it was to coach elite athletes into retirement because they didn't know who they were without their job. And we start a lot of our talks with, who are you without your job? And it's a very confronting question to be asking people, because we need to build the whole person, and the job is something that you do and we build our lives around. But at the end of the day, if we took that away, we actually need to make sure we've got a great life plan, that we actually are pretty in touch with what's most important to us and what our values are and our style is and our personal brand is. So we really wanted to bring everything down to personal mastery, because high-performing humans create high-performing teams. So we're bringing the spotlight back to the individual now, rather than let's go into a company and talk about skills. Let's talk about them, but ensure that everyone creates their personalized plan. And all people should have a personal plan on how they want to show up in life and what their habits are and what their values and their vision is. And I just don't think we've ever been taught how to do that. We certainly learn it in high-performance sport. And we brought it into Sports Girl and Suzanne with Cole and her team, and it was incredibly successful, where we really protected the people, and the people all rose, the people all elevated. And so that's what we wanted to do, is bring personalised planning into high performance.
And is that kind of where you both meet? Because obviously you've got more like the personal, sense of self background, whereas Colleen, you've got the very professional, a career that people can only dream of. So is that how the two of you have met in the middle, per se?
Yes, well, Colleen's got the whole leadership, brand, culture, leading big teams, and I've always been the person behind the person. So the person behind the Olympian or the person behind the CEO with the clear questions, with the gaining of clarity, with how to protect the asset, that we all want to be here for the long term and nobody does want to burn out. So we decided to really combine those skills into, wow, we all need to lead ourselves first and then we can lead teams. So how do we become the best version of ourselves first and foremost?
And now going to this big topic of burnout, which is something that I've touched on a lot in this podcast because it is something that is only becoming, more prevalent in society. And you both mentioned that the rising rates of burnout is one of the reasons that we need a master plan, we need a personal plan. Why do you think so many people are suffering from burnout these days? Why is it just becoming more and more common?
It's such a huge topic, isn't it? And I think it is much more prevalent today. Shannah and I have both experienced it. I know we spoke about this on the last podcast. I had burnout in 2007. Shannah had chronic fatigue and still lives with that today. But one thing that we haven't had, Marissa, is burnout during the pandemic, which most people have had because we've put the boundaries and structures and disciplines into our lives based on that experience that we had. The number is something like 52% of employed people in Australia had burnout over those couple of years. And, when Shannah and I run the master plan and we ask that question and say to the audience, how many of you have experienced some sign of burnout? Nearly 100% of the room put their hand up. So I think there's a lot more than 52%. And really, the whole thing about burnout, I think there's a couple of things. I think, we all know we need boundaries. When you ask someone, do you need boundaries? People say yes, but most people don't have them. And that's really the biggest thing that we need to implement to be able to either prevent burnout or get off that burnout train if we're on it. Our homes, we're all in our homes now. I'm inviting you into my home. Shannah's inviting you into hers. We're coming into yours. We are all working in a very different way to the way we worked 2 years ago or pre-pandemic. And so our homes that are generally our sanctuary and our place of security and comfort and downtime are now our place of work. And we've definitely seen that through the pandemic is people are getting up and they're in their home office before they've even wiped the sleep out of their eyes. And then they're still there at 10 and 11 o'clock at night. So it's become this real mouse wheel that we've jumped on. And so a big part of the master plan, the longevity piece, which is absolutely the piece that people have missing, is what are the habits and plans that you can create and boundaries that you can put in place to actually make sure that you don't face burnout. How do we disconnect from technology? We are just connected 24/7 now, right? There's just nowhere you turn that you're not connected to something. So how do we help people build those structures and recognize some of those burnout signs so that we can really make sure that we help people, as I said, build those structures and boundaries in to make sure that they don't hit burnout.
Just on, how COVID definitely impacted burnout in the sense over those 2 years, especially in Melbourne where we were locked down for so long. All you had was work. So you kind of had none of that downtime. You had nothing fun to look forward to. But now on the other end of the spectrum, I'm finding myself just exhausted because I'm working, the same amount of hours. And then I go to something on a Friday night. I have something on Saturday day, then something Saturday night. And it's so exhausting. But then it's like when I'm like, oh, I'm going to take it slow this weekend and have a really quiet one. I get to Monday at work and I'm like, I need the weekend. I want to do something fun. It's so hard to find that balance now, I've found.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most people are saying that. We became very sort of isolated in the pandemic, and then we kind of get introduced back into society, but we've still got as much on our plate as we had, and in fact, we've got more because we've reconditioned ourselves to be working much longer hours, putting much more on our plate, saying yes to everything that hits our emails. And so people need to now really realign their lives, really get some balance back in, really build those life leadership longevity skills, but in balance. It's really, really important, the work that we're teaching to be able to get our lives back in order.
I'm hoping that your master plan will be something to help me get my life back in order. And with your master plan, so there's 3 main pillars. There's life, leadership, and longevity. And today I really wanted to dive into that first pillar, life. What is this pillar's goal in particular?
Well, we always thought, where do we start on the journey with somebody? You know, when people are coming to us or we're working with clients or every human being, we always have to just start at the bottom and build a really solid foundation before we go into what kind of leader, we really want to be. So if we start with your foundation, Marissa, it's all about, let's go back to the first questions, which is, what are you good at? What are your strengths? Really know your strengths. Let's work with the strengths and forget about the weaknesses a bit, because that's what comes easy and effortless for you. And then when people can harness their strengths and they're very clear on what they are, then we can go into your values and what is most important to you. So you know what you're good at, and then you know what you're most gifted, or what's most important to you, I should say, which is your values, which are home base. They're your lighthouse. That's how you make decisions moving forward. So if you don't know your own set of values, then how do you know if you're making a great decision moving forward? So, you might say my value is health, but then you're going out all weekend and that's not really honoring all of your health. It's honoring a small part of your health, but not maybe the holistic view of health, which is mental health, physical health, emotional health, and spiritual health. So we've got 4 beautiful buckets that we need to look after, and they should actually help you make decisions. Is this going to really go towards my values or take me away? So that clarity of what's most important to you is really important. So we usually ask people to pick their top 3 values. So, we've got health, family happiness, achievement. We love achievement. We're both A-type overachieving junkies like yourself. We love doing the list. We love ticking the list off. But, at the end of the day, it comes at a really big cost, doesn't it? It comes at burnout. So how do we become a healthier version of achievement? And that might mean, well, it's more important for me to go to yoga, or it's more important for me to maybe do some breath work to regulate my nervous system. And if I do that, I'll have longevity in my job. So that would be much better. So the third part in the pillar, Marissa, is vision, and that is really appealing to your bigger, better self. And that is, where do you want to be in 3, 5, 10 years' time? So if you think about yourself in 3 years' time, and for the listeners, how old they will be in 3 years' time, how do you want to feel? What do you want to have experienced in life? What do you want to have achieved in life? Where do you want to be financially in life in 3 years' time? So the brain actually needs a map. And what we find is a lot of people say, I don't know what I'm doing next week or next year. So I just exist. I just react to the world around me. Whereas when you're a high-performing human and living high-performance life, you know exactly where you're going, you know why you want to get there, how you want to feel, and what are the main goals that you need to achieve to get there. And that gives you purpose. And when we have purpose, we go to bed at night with clarity. We feel like we have achieved. We know what we have to do to not burn out to get to those goals. So we think that, strengths, values, and vision is really the first 3 parts of that pillar. And then we go into, people understanding what health really is for them, because without our health, we're not getting anywhere. Just asking them to do the check on, where they are with their mental health. Our mental health is the brain, the computer. It's what we're telling ourselves. Is it really, an inner critic going crazy, or are we reprogramming it all the time with something that actually works for us and supports us? You've got your physical body, which is how you eat, move, sleep, and breathe. And we get the opportunity every year of our life to fine-tune that, to make really small changes for big impact. So swapping some bad habits out there along the way. And then we've got emotional health, which is your heart space, which is all about, kindness and compassion and empathy and gratitude. And do you have that for yourself first before you give it to others? So that love of self really comes in. And then there's spiritual health, which is belonging to something greater than yourself. So when people get really nice and clear about all of that, all of a sudden they've got more purpose to their life. Then we talk about mindset and confidence. And mindset is, how are you training the brain? Because Your words are your rudder in life. You know, a lot of Navy SEALs talk about their words being their rudder. It is what you tell yourself is how you direct your brain and your feelings and your nervous system and your energy. So be really careful with the words that you're saying. So we talk a lot about affirmations in there, and we talk about confidence. And, you know, it's a muscle that we need to work on all the time. No one's actually born confident. And how confident do you want to be? Is it that nice, inner, deep, calm confidence? So we think that pillar first. When people can then go into leadership from the clarity on that pillar, they have a beautiful, solid foundation on, let's go and build your life now.
I'd love to go a bit deeper on some of those with you, because I think a lot of what you said resonates with me. And I did a lot of work on myself maybe like 2-3 years ago before I started this podcast. And I, you know, didn't have a plan, but I did some similar kind of things that you talk about. And the first step that you mentioned was connecting and knowing who you are and finding out what your strengths are. And as I said before, I'm someone who's always been quite sure of who I am. And I was really surprised that that doesn't come easily to everybody. So for someone who is listening and goes, I have no idea what I'm good at, I have no idea what my strengths are, I don't really know myself, where can they start?
It's a really great question, Marissa. And I think they need to think about themselves as the house, right? And we talk about building the foundations of your house first. All roads lead back to self. If we are looking to other people to help us be better leaders, or other people to help us be more confident, or other people to live in line with our values, we are not going to be very successful, because none of those things are on our terms. So it's really important for any of your listeners listening today or to this podcast to think about how solid are their foundations. Right? We don't build a house on shaky foundations, right? We make sure our foundations of the house are really solid, and then we can build this magnificent house that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to be still standing there in 50 and 100 years' time. And us as humans are exactly the same as building that house. If we don't build those foundations, then we're not going to weather those storms and those external factors that come our way. And we've seen plenty of them over the past 2 years. So the couple of things, and Shannah's touched on a few of them, but really knowing your values, because our values are how we make decisions. They're the things that are most important to us in the way we live and work. And the second one is to know yourself. And to do that, we need to ask ourselves questions. We need to hold the mirror up and really, you know, we talk about it as the babushka doll. Let's keep opening that babushka doll until we get right to the center, because that's really where all the answers are. And until we get to that center, we're really just seeing the outer surface of who we are. So really dig deep and ask ourselves questions. That's a fantastic way to really build that foundation. And the other one is our purpose. You know, why are we here? Why do we show up every day? And, you know, I know we're going to touch on purpose today as well, but once we get those foundations right, the magic really starts to happen. And, you know, when I think about the most successful people I've ever met or worked with, or entrepreneurs that I've ever come across in my life, the one thing they all have in common is self-awareness. So we really need to direct all roads back to self and work on ourselves more than we work on anything else in life. Because when we work on ourselves more, we become more intelligent, we become more wise, we become more knowledgeable, we become more valued. And that's when we can really add value to other people and other people's lives.
Thinking about, say, purpose and defining your purpose, do you think that it's a good idea to keep it away from work and like your professional side? Or is that okay to be, you know, your life purpose to climb a corporate ladder?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely okay, because it's authentically who you are. It's authentically part of that foundation work that, you know, we encourage people to do and we work with people to do. You know, when we know our purpose, we start living much more in line with ourselves, and we start living a life much more consciously, and it becomes much more fulfilled because our energy is focusing on what's important. Some people think, you know, my purpose is different at work to home. We actually only have one purpose. It's our why, it's our mission statement, it's what puts a fire in our belly, it's why we show up. It's really the message that we want to share with the world. So there's some really simple steps on working out your purpose. I always say to people, if you can't find your purpose, find your passion, because your passion will lead you back to your purpose. We work with people that have been in careers for 10, 20 years, and they're like, I'm just not really that happy. And when we pull the layers back, the reason they're not happy is because they're not living out their purpose. They're not putting their energy into something that really fills up their tank and makes them happy. So when we're very clear on that purpose, we can create the life that we want to live. We can build in high performance strategies to live a high performance life. And high performance means something different to everyone, right? Which is why the master plan is personalized to you. But once you know your purpose as a part of that foundational work, you can achieve those goals and dreams and big things you set for yourself. It's really, really fantastic to watch that happen.
Just adding to that is it's really important because a lot of people, a very few people are born knowing their purpose. I want to be a doctor. They've wanted to be a doctor since they, opened their eyes, basically. But for a lot of people, they might be in their 50s and still don't know their purpose or have connected with their purpose. And that's why we always go back to values, because when you know your values, you have purpose every day to go and serve them. If a value is health, you can start studying about health or fine-tuning your health or just working on certain sections of your health, to upgrade. You've always got purpose every day. And it doesn't have to be a big, grand plan at the end of the day. It can actually be quite small.
I didn't realize that we only had one life purpose. That sounds really silly, but I thought, we had different purposes in different types of life. So that's really interesting to learn. And I guess, say, for me, who doesn't, I somewhat know what my life purpose is, but do you write down my life purpose is that what you kind of recommend in your master plan?
Yeah, it's a really great question. It's about finding what do we love, what are we good at, what fills up our tank, and how do we then like actually sharing that with the world. It might be mentoring, teaching, coaching, storytelling. So there's a whole lot again of questions and steps that we go through where you can find your purpose. And it's really great, Marissa, when you say, oh, I didn't know I only had one purpose. You might have one purpose, but you can express that purpose in very different ways. And as you evolve in life, you might be expressing it in different parts of your life. So someone asked me in an interview, so Cole, you're not a CEO anymore. What's your purpose now? And my answer was, my purpose has never changed. It's bigger and greater than it's ever been before. We're doing it on a bigger stage. I'm doing it with a partner that we complement each other. So my purpose is the same, which is inspire and empower people to live a life of high performance. That can be in an organization, that can be in your life, that can be in your teaching world, that can be on your podcast. So the purpose is the same. It can get delivered in multiple ways.
That makes sense. I get that. The next step is my favorite because I am such a planner. I am a future planner. I love it. I love writing down what I envision my life to be, and I love manifesting. So this one is all about your future vision and creating a future roadmap. And you mentioned 3 years. Is that what you kind of recommend to be planning for the next 3 years? Why not shorter? Why not further away?
Well, high performance is actually doing the very big roadmap first, which is 20. You actually start with 20 years, which sounds crazy to so many people. But we do 20-year plans. So when we do 20-year plans with people, they actually are writing down their age every year for 20 years on a piece of paper. And then their children's age or their partner's age, and they're getting an instant map and landscape then to go and deal with. So you actually want to open the brain big first. So add 20 years to however old you are now, Marissa, and all of a sudden you go, oh, I've never envisaged my older self that old, and what is my wise old self actually telling me about today? Because the lessons are already there in you. So when we open up big, we think about, okay, well, where do I want to be in 20 years' time? And you can sort of visualize a little bit because you can see where other people are at that same age. Then you break it into 10, then 5, and then 3. You really nail down into 3 and think about what's on my vision board. So, we want our values on the vision board front and center. We want our strengths there. We want some goals up there. We want some beautiful visuals up there of things that inspire us or countries that we want to go to, and the Maldives and the car and the house and the relationship and all of those wonderful things. So we create a visual that gets us excited and emotional actually about our future self. It can have things like diet up there, like the foods that actually give you energy. So the brain actually gets excited and emotionally connected to pictures. So a vision board brings your vision to life. So when we have a 3-year goal up there with goals, words, beautiful sayings that we love, power words set in there, great pictures, great prompts for ourselves, great questions to keep asking ourselves, and we see that every single day. That's high performance vision, and that's what athletes do. So you can have them as your screensaver. So, we've got ours as screensavers. I've got ones here in the office up on the wall. I'm sure you've done one yourself because you're creative. And we all know that self-care isn't selfish, right? So if we're not caring for our own lives, we're living somebody else's. We actually need to take the time to sit down and get creative about what is the journey that you want? What do you want to be learning? What makes you happy? What makes you feel cared for? What are your self-care rituals? They should all be up there. And when we create that beautiful picture, we're actually appealing to something greater than ourselves. And, Matthew McConaughey's Oscar speech, when he won the Oscar for the Dallas Buyers Club, in his speech, he said his role model is his 10-year-older self. And he's always chasing that person. So when he's 50, it's his 60-year-old self. When he's 51, it's his 61-year-old self. It is the bigger, better version of him who has achieved but grown and evolved as a human. So we don't want to be the same person in 10 years' time. We really want to have evolved. So the power of vision and vision creation is a absolute high-performance habit and something that we teach in the master plan, and we think is imperative for success, for people to feel inner harmony, because they know then they're living their life on their terms, on their purpose, with their self-care strategy, and they're not living the person's next to them.
I love that. I love that quote as well about chasing your 10-year-old version of yourself. It gives me goosebumps because it's always striving to better yourself. What are you learning through your experiences? So I think that's really, really powerful. And then the last 2 steps are about transforming your own mindset, which is something I'm, again, really passionate about, and also being empowered to lead with confidence. One of the things you did touch on too is affirmations in this section, which I love, because when I was in a bit of a rut and didn't really know who I was, that was one thing that really helped me. I would do like mirror work. I would say all these things to my mirror to make me feel them, and I would write things in my phone all the time. So what does affirmations look like for you guys in the master plan?
You are an A+ student, by the way, Marissa. You're ticking all of our boxes and making us very excited because they are really important. The way we view ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we look at ourselves has a really big impact on how we show up every day. We want to talk to ourselves like our best friend, and sometimes we'll say things to ourselves and we're like, really? Would you really say that to your best friend? Would you really want to erode their confidence like that? So the whole affirmation is about building your confidence, telling yourself every day, I am worthy, I am kind, I am human, I am connected, I am vulnerable, I am whatever it might be. Once we start to believe those, once we continuously repeat them, we're training the brain to think differently. When we get up every day and have positive thoughts and a growth mindset, that's really the way our day continues. If we get up and say, oh, it's going to be a pretty crappy day today, here we go again, I'll guarantee it's going to be a pretty crappy day today, right? So we have to change our mindset. We have to open our minds and think about, how do I talk to myself every day? How do I really create this vision, as Shannah was saying, for myself, as in who I want to be and how I want to show up? We can't be what we can't see. We have to be telling ourselves these things every day. And what it does is build that confidence muscle.
You are your own best friend. You are the person that's there for you every day. So you should be treating yourself and talking to yourself with kindness at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once you kind of build up that confidence, is that when you learn how to be a great leader? Is that what this step is kind of all about?
Definitely. I mean, again, all roads lead back to self and all roads lead to confidence. And we need to be building confidence in ourselves, particularly as women, and we need to be building confidence in each other. Confidence is a muscle, right? So the more we use it, the stronger it gets. And the other good news is that it is a skill. It's not a trait. And like any skill, if we want to learn the guitar, then the more we play it, the better we're going to get at it. So we can learn any skill. And if confidence is a skill, then we can learn that as well. So it's really important that we start to change the narrative, that we start to know when that inner critic turns up, or that imposter syndrome starts to set in, or that self-sabotage comes to the front of our mind again. We all have this inner critic, and we need to know when that inner critic arrives, and we need to start to change the story for ourselves. Because when we change our story, we can actually change our lives. So confidence is a big part of high performance leadership, high performance living, but also it's a really big part of the way we need to live our lives if we want to be able to achieve things that are on that vision board that we want for ourselves.
You are speaking my language. I am all about being the confidence queen, so I love it. And if someone took only one thing away from this pillar, I know it's going to be hard to choose because there's so many important little lessons in there, but only one thing from this pillar of life, what would you want it to be?
Well, we love all of them, as you said, and it's very hard to choose. But we always start with values, because values is how are you going to show up in the world if you don't know what's most important to you. And all of our values are going to be different. And when you really want to find confidence and inner harmony and build great health, you need to know what's most important to you. Is it the career? Is it your health? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it your children? Like, we actually need to know the order in order to make great decisions, to build the vision moving forward, to create leadership qualities so that we can lead and inspire other people. The first thing that Cole and I sit down and do is, it's very clear on what our values are. And are the decisions that we're making actually feeding our values, in alignment with our values, or are they taking us off track? So I think values are really about the core of you, and you should always start there. And as I said, there's so many wonderful things, but Marissa, I'm sure you have done this, and your listeners, values actually come first and foremost, because we don't want to be building a house on a shaky ground. We don't want to build great plans that actually don't really feed our values at the end of the day.
So everyone listening needs to get their values in check, make sure they know what they are, and then they can start from there. But what is next for you both and the master plan, and where can my listeners find out more about it?
We're so excited about the next decade. As Shannah was saying, we're chasing our best 10-year self. We think these next 10 years for us, we're both in our early 50s. We actually think these next 10 years are going to be the best, because we have this knowledge and wisdom and confidence to be able to go out and do things that we never thought we could do. Shannah's the author of 7 books. I'm the author of 1, but we just spent 7 days locked down. And when I say lockdown, I mean lockdown, writing 16 hours a day, writing our book, where we will have our book come out at the end of the year. Penguin will be publishing that for us, and that will go global. So we're super excited about sharing that. So if you can't get to one of our programs or get to the master plan, then you've got this really incredible tool that shares a lot of this with you. The other big thing for us under our Human Elevation banner, outside of the master plan and our book, is walking the world. Shannah and I love to walk, and we always had. And I was saying to you when we were off podcast, we used to live around the corner from each other. We now live away from each other, but any chance we get, we walk together. And we used to walk all the time. So we've partnered with an amazing company called Wandering the World, and we are taking groups of people and walking the world and teaching them the master plan. So in April, we go to Camino. We're taking 16 people. That actually sold out in 10 days. It's a real bucket list item for people. In October, we go to Japan and we're walking Tokyo to Kyoto. And then next year, we're doing Camino again in April and Italy in October. And the year after, we're doing Camino again in April. And then we're doing Scotland in October. So we're really taking this high performance living to a whole new level. We're going next level on this. And we're looking at every single avenue we can possibly find to serve out our purpose, which is to elevate humans and really give them the tools and tips to be able to live the life that they deserve, which is only the best life, right? That's what we all deserve. But that all starts with working on ourselves. So that's what we're really focused on for the next sort of decade.
That sounds amazing. Firstly, the book, that is so exciting, and I'm sure that will do so well. Everything you speak about is so important. But walking around the world, I love that. I love that. We'll have to do a recap after your first one and we can talk about it because it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And you can come on one with us if you like.
Oh, yeah. My eyes are on the Italy one.
Really great.
My very last question for you both is, what is something you do every day that makes you feel alive and the best version of you?
Well, for me, I need to get up and move my body and walk, because when you have been fully burnt out like myself, which was 30 years ago with chronic fatigue, full adrenal burnout, it's sort of like you've become the Ferrari, but you've got a crack in the engine. So there's a bit of a fatigue every time you start the engine. And so for me, if I don't move and walk or go to yoga or go to Pilates or move for that first hour of the day is no good. So I need to get everything moving to loosen up, to get everything running a little bit smoothly so I can function at a high level in the day. So it's actually imperative for me to get up and move my body.
And for me, I do the same. I walk every morning, but I can't use that answer because Shannah's already given that one. So, but I would say on that walk, the one thing that I do every day is think about, what am I grateful for today? And on that walk, I walk the beach. I've got my dog. I might have a chat with Shannah on the phone. But I really, really appreciate the life that I have, and not the big things, not the material things, but the things that really fill my soul and make me a happy person. And that's being able to, have amazing friends in my life, have this incredible business partner with Shannah where it's just completely authentic and we're both doing exactly what we love, or, having the luxury of sleeping in a beautiful warm bed last night with a fantastic husband, being able to make lunch for my son today when he came home from work. They're all the things that we need to be really grateful for. So yeah, one of my rituals is every day think about the things I'm grateful for, the things I have, not the things that I don't have in my life, because that just gets us down and comparing ourselves to other people. And we really shouldn't be comparing to anyone else other than ourselves and living our own lives. So yeah, I would say being grateful is a really big part of the way Shannah and I both live our lives.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to stay connected and watch all of your walks from afar. I'm obsessed with that.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. And thank you, Marissa, for doing all the wonderful work that you do. You've been doing this podcast for a very long time. You've got a great following and, people that really chime into your podcast because you bring on these incredible people who are all in service to others, and you're also in service to others. So keep doing the amazing work that you're doing, being the beautiful human that you're doing. And we'd love to circle back and share our book and our walk with you. And maybe one day you can join us on a walk, but keep being the beautiful person that you are.
And thank you for having us. And, as you said, you've already done a lot of the work on yourself, and it sort of shows, doesn't it? You really do radiate the fact that you do have some inner harmony, and you do know who you are and where you're going and how you're going to get there. And I think if everybody could show up like that in the world, it'd be a really kind, wonderful place.
I agree. Well, thank you again. And I'm sure we will stay in touch. Thank you so much for having me in your ear holes today. As always, please subscribe, rate, and review via your favorite podcast app and follow on Instagram @selfishsesh. Stay selfish, babes, and chat soon.